everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I will be talking to you about all of the nerdy things I did in the month of August, which all happened in the last week in Dublin at the 77th Worldcon. Before I say anything else, two things. Number one, I will mention a lot of people and a lot of booktubers, and when I do, please know that their channel will be linked down below, so I don't have to say I'll link it down below every time. And the second thing is Worldcon. What is it? In case you don't know, it is an annual convention that happens around the world, different cities every time, although some cities have had repeat Worldcons before. They hand out the Hugo Awards for science fiction. It is mainly science fiction, but fantasy, and it's a dominant theme as well, and the SFF community is there. It's very easy to see that in Worldcon there's no limits on age or size or background or anything whatsoever. The only thing that matters is our mutual love for books and science fiction and fantasy, and it was so easy to see that based on the crowd and based on the way people were dressed and the books that were handed out. It was just such an incredible experience, and it was so well put together. The only thing that kind of threw me off a little bit was just how many people came. There were over 5,000 people, and there were some lineups, very significant ones, and sometimes we had to miss some of the panels. But at Worldcon you have a lot of rooms that they have speeches, lectures, Q&As with authors, and Booktube also had a panel, so we had a lot of people asking questions about Booktube for the first time. They've never heard of it before, and it was just kind of nice to step outside of the bubble for a little bit and remember that there was a time when I didn't know about Booktube either. I went to a few panels, and the two that kind of are most memorable to me, there was one on Hopepunk, which is a new term and it's a new punk, but it's basically in response to grim noir, and it's not supposed to be just a happy feel-good book. It's overcoming adversity or sticking it to the man with a positive outcome near the end, but still having struggle throughout. It was very humbling to listen to authors discuss their experiences and then talk to readers and listening to other people's questions about this. I also saw Jo Walton do a reading from her next book, which I'm very much looking forward to seeing. That said, the convention itself was absolutely incredible, and I'm very much looking forward to future ones. In the middle of this convention center, there was a dealer's room, and the dealer's room is like a giant bookstore with artsy things, and they had necklaces and artists' crafts, and a lot of booksellers and publishers were kind of giving out books. Some of them are very new, some of them are vintage, some of them were kind of put thematically. Some publishers only publish a certain genre, so I've learned a lot there. In the dealer's room I bought many books, and I will put that in my book haul from Worldcon video. But I also got a few other things, and I'll show them to you. The first thing I got was this necklace with a skeleton on it. It's like a lady skeleton. Then I got these earrings, which are dinosaurs, because dinosaurs are cool. I also got this pin made by Rhea from the Book Finch, who was incredible, and she made it herself and 3D printed it and painted it by hand, and I'll explain more about this later. And then at the Worldcon event you get this sort of badge. So the badge is given to you at the very beginning, and you get a pronoun, and then you get to collect all these ribbons. And as you can see, the Booktube SFF has two different ribbons, and they were also designed by Rhea. This was kind of our way into the con, so I had to keep this on me at all times. There's also a Tolkien booth, which just had all of the books that have to do with Tolkien. There were some that had to do with book binding and cloth and sewing, which also got my attention. Many t-shirts and things like that. But Worldcon wasn't really about Worldcon, was it? Because the most incredible experience was meeting other booktubers, people I have watched for years, and I don't even know where to begin with this. So first, I arrived in Dublin on the 13th in the morning, and I made it to our apartment in the hotel, and the first person to greet me was my roommate, Rachel, from the channel Calinati. I have been watching Rachel for maybe 3 years now, and she's one of the main reasons why I not only got into YouTube in the first place, but why I went to the con, and why I became so fascinated by science fiction in general, a genre I used to kind of steer away from before. So to see her live and to also be roommates with her was just kind of mind-blowing. And she is not only the nicest person ever, but she kind of babysat me through this whole thing, because I was like Harry Potter being introduced to the world of magic, and someone had to explain everything to me. Like, I had to understand how this works. I had to understand how registration works. I had no idea how to do anything at all that had to do with the con itself. So to have someone kind of be patient and explain everything was really, really nice. I was really blessed that a lot of these people who were there were at their second or third or fourth Worldcon. Everyone seemed a lot more confident, and I was just kind of hoping nobody notices that I have no idea what I'm doing. And then our other roommates arrived. So we were also roommates with Claire from Claire Rousseau, and Rhea from the Bookfinch, and Bree from Bree Reads. And the 5 of us kind of shared this one apartment, which was really nice because we had our own kitchen and sort of living room, where we eventually had more booktubers come over for a dinner and a hangout. And we had frequent visitors like Maya and Elizabeth from Books and Pieces. So it was really cool to see all of these booktubers that I've been watching for many years you know, speak to me and laugh with me and share a meal with me. And I want to tell you that I was very, very cool about it, but I was not cool about it. When I saw Caitlin from Kitty G, we were sitting for lunch, and I immediately went up to her and said, you know, just so you know, I frequently sing your intro song in the shower. Can I take a selfie with you? And I know that you're supposed to be cool at these things, but I just couldn't help it. I mean, I've been watching these people for so long. And it was funny because when I kind of vocalized some of my thoughts about seeing everyone, they said, yeah, well, we're kind of here to socialize too, so don't worry about it. It's a very common thing to do. There were also bigger personalities at Worldcon. George R.R. Martin was there. Obviously, a lot of big writers were there. I think I made eye contact with Patrick Rothfuss at one point. And Lindsay Ellis, the person who does video essays on YouTube. Just a lot of people. Like, I got overwhelmed with how many people were there who I recognized from the back covers of books. Shannon Maguire, Mary Robinette Kowal. It was so incredible to see all of these people, but also seeing them in cool costumes. I'm going to take you now through my days aside from Worldcon, and they will all be kind of nerdy anyway, and you'll see why. So on our first full day in Dublin, we were all kind of still getting to know each other. Some people had met before, but I was kind of new to everyone, so we were all kind of getting a feel. And we met up with several other booktubers. So Elizabeth, Thomas from SFF 180, Paul from A Common Touch of Fantasy, and Joe, who has been my reading buddy for so long and we've never met, so it was really nice to meet him, and Maya, and several other people. And we all kind of joined together and went to a few stores to look at yarn. And it was really funny because a lot of people knitted, and they knit not only when they have any spare moments, but they knit during the panels at Worldcon. There were a lot of knitters there. So it was really funny kind of shopping for yarn where I had no idea how to even judge other than go, this is so soft. Then we went to a few bookstores because, you know, booktubers. I think by the end of day one, everyone had already kind of blown through half their budget on books, because we went to a bunch of bookstores in a row, and it was just overwhelming how many pretty covers there were, and various new books that some people didn't even have in their country. Like Maya and Rhea were constantly saying, we don't get this in Finland. So it was really cool to see that. I tried my best not to buy books that I can't find here as easily. But again, that will be in the book haul video. In the afternoon, we all went to the Trinity College library. Now here we met with Shannon from That's So Poe and her husband Sush, who honestly stole the hearts of everyone. They are incredible and so friendly and wonderful and smart, and the two of them together have been one of the biggest highlights of this trip. Not just for me, but for everyone. And I really, really hope I get to meet them again in the future because, wow, such incredible people. And together as a group, we went to see the Book of Kells, the manuscript. But it was very crowded and it was very hard to take a good look at the actual manuscript. But we got to see a lot of the exhibition, which I got to appreciate from a librarian standpoint because I understood just how much work went into just presenting those panels and printed things. And they even had kind of the pigments and the rocks and sediments that would create the inks within the Book of Kells and the stitching. There were a lot of details. I could not take photos in the manuscript room for obvious reasons, but we were allowed to photograph the long room. And oh my god, I was in library heaven. The long room is one of the most fascinating, incredible, lovely, and nicest smelling libraries I've ever been in. So many books, and they all smell like, well, we talked about the book smell before, but it was just so strong, like that rare book smell. There was also a facsimile of the Book of Kells there that you could take a closer look at because the original was kind of crowded. In this place, I actually did get a notebook about it's not about the library, just it has the library on the cover, but it's a notebook, so I thought I could use it for library things. And I did get a shirt which has like the Book of Kells writing on it because, you know, it seems pretty cool and I really enjoy manuscripts and I wear shirts, so it works out. I should also mention that this whole time, Rhea had taught me so many things about Finland and it just blew my mind. And she's so artistic and I got to flip through some of her bullet journal. Like, she's an amazing artist. Like, I can see now why she created such beautiful ribbons for all of us. I also discovered that there's a Romanian community of SFF lovers and they're trying to get this film festival running in Romania in 2020. So I met with a few of those people as well, and it was just really cool to speak Romanian in Ireland. Next day I went with several people to the Dublinia, which is a museum, and it focuses on the medieval period and on the Vikings. It's kind of connected to a really big church. Once inside, I kind of walked through history and it was really cool because they had a funeral scene set up, they had kind of the lifestyle, a lot of things about the Black Death and the plague, and those were obviously very, very cool. Just a few minutes of a walk away, there was the Marsh Library, and at the Marsh Library, everything on the exhibition was focused on Bram Stoker. Now, Bram Stoker is kind of like the weird thing that Romania has in common with Ireland, mainly because he is Irish and wrote Dracula, and Dracula is based upon Vlad Tepes, the Transylvanian Romanian leader. I talked about this in Romania and Speculative Fiction, I'll link it down below. But it was really cool to kind of see these two worlds merge and to kind of step through this also incredible library. We couldn't take any photos, and I'm sorry, but there were a lot of displays with what Bram Stoker would have read in his research for writing Dracula and other books. And what I did take from there was their kind of library catalog. Remember we talked about exhibition catalogs. So a lot of the books that were on display are better explained in this exhibition catalog with a little bit of a blurb as to what it's about and you know, research done by the librarians. I'm really glad we went. Those two things were kind of away from the conference, but they were so worth visiting because they were very memorable. The next day we went on a cemetery tour, and this was at Glasnevin Cemetery. So many people were there, buried there. There's more buried people than there are people in Dublin alive right now. I realized that a cemetery tells a story. And I never thought about it this way because I usually think of the actual procedure to, you know, the funeral itself as a cultural thing, but I never thought of the actual cemetery. I've thought about it before in terms of architecture or design or landscape or it taking up space, both in the imagination as in the afterlife or underworld, but also as like physical space. But the more the guide spoke about each tombstone, I realized how many stories are kind of layered and you can see them visually. So for example, the person who designed the cemetery, his headstone is this giant tower in the middle of the cemetery, which is very obvious when you walk in. But as you go into the crypt and look at his actual coffin, you notice that there are 7 random coffins on the side. And those are actual corpses in there, and the reason they're all stacked upon each other is because someone had once tried to blow up that tower, and that alone says a story. You know, you ask, why are those there? And now you find out this whole new history. There was also this very, very small area that held, according to our guide, 11,500 bodies within a very, very small patch of land. And the reason for it was that they were very, very poor and they couldn't afford a proper funeral. So it was kind of marked with just one rock for one person who became kind of a revolutionary figure representing the poor. But, you know, it speaks a lot to famine and disease and procedures of the past, and tells various stories beyond just the individuals who were celebrated. It tells the story of many others who weren't, but it has like social ramifications. So that was absolutely fascinating. We spent almost an entire afternoon there, and the author Peter S. Beagle was there, which made me really excited because I've once been blurbed in one of his anthologies, and I've read The Last Unicorn, and I'm a pretty big fan of his, so it was really cool to talk to him in a cemetery of all places. Several booktubers came on this trip as well. I was really happy to be there with all of these people that I absolutely love. And on the very last day, I went on a hike. So this hike was in this further away town called Howth or Howth, I can't pronounce it, and I'm sorry. This was Paul's idea, and Rachel and Paul and Joe were already signed up to go, and I had no idea who else was going, so I just impulsively signed up because I was afraid to miss out on it. And after walking all the steps up to that tower in the cemetery and feeling my legs shake afterwards, I was terrified that I would not be able to make it through this hike alive. I was a little bit right. This was the most incredible hike I've ever taken. It was on the coast. It was 11 miles. And our guide was fascinated by the fact that we were all kind of SFF booktubers, and he tried to weave in stories throughout his hike. And he would tell us about, for example, H.G. Wells, who stayed at this nearby inn and then wrote a short story about it, or inspired by the landscape in this town. And then he recited it for us when we got to the top. And as we went along this journey, he would kind of make literary references. He said he wants to be like Tom Bombadil when he grows up. Surprisingly, this whole experience has just made me really want to reread a lot of Lord of the Rings stuff. I don't know why. Everything always reminds me of Lord of the Rings. It's not helpful for next Worldcon, which is going to be New Zealand. A lot of Tolkien there. somehow. It's always funny to me how Tolkien set out to make mythology for England, but somehow he made it for New Zealand. The hike was just exhausting. It was weird for a few reasons. Number one, a lot of the flora in Dublin is almost tropical. There were palm trees and ferns that you would expect to see somewhere like in the Amazon forest or Latin America. It was surprising to find bushes and bushes of blackberries. I think I ate like 10 Canadian dollars worth of blackberries on that walk. I was just kind of picking up food as we went along. And the other thing is the climate. It would rain for only like 1 minute every hour, but it was just enough to get you soaked, and then you'd keep going and everything would be slippery, and there were all these tricky ferns, and we would have to go through just kind of a lot of tall bushes and just like make our way through. And I'm so glad we did that on the last day. So thank you, Paul, for coming up with this idea. Then on the last night we had a final dinner to say goodbye to everyone, and I got to sit with Kelsey from the Fancy Hat Lady Reads, and Bex and John from Night Hunters, and Thomas from SFF 180. And it was really nice kind of alternating seating arrangements every dinner so that we could talk to different people about different things. And it's just so cool because, you know, you could talk about editing and booktube, and for once your friends are interested in talking about the same things. So yeah, overall this was a very nice nerdy experience. So on that note, I will see you in my next video, which will be a book haul video of all of the books I got at Worldcon. I'll see you then. Bye!